Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 definitely starts to veer into some John Wicky territory, which could be considered a con. However, as a whole, it's a better film. One thing about Mission Impossible, the Mission Impossible movies that I've always enjoyed, not counting number 2, okay? I just pretend that one doesn't exist. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about these films is that despite the crazy stuff that happens in these movies, for the most part, they do feel like they have more of a sense of realism, or they're rooted and grounded in reality a bit more than certain other action film franchises like John Wick, which has completely jumped the shark, gone totally off the rails. I'm just so done with that. But Mission Impossible has just been pretty consistently solid, and I have enjoyed this franchise as it has continued. I can't really pick a favorite because movies 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have all been really solid. Initially, I wasn't super crazy about movie number 1. I just felt kind of meh about it, but upon going back and rewatching it a few years ago, it is actually a very decent film. I don't remember who that chick is. Anyway, distracted. It's a very decent film. It holds up. And the subsequent movies from 3 until now have been very solid entries in the franchise. So I'll go ahead and just talk about pros and observations that I had when Arturo and I went to go see this movie today. The film starts off with a message to the audience from Tom Cruise and the director, much like how Tom did when Top Gun Maverick came out. And so that was kind of a nice touch. Something also that I liked about the intro, which it's a long intro, from the time the film starts until you get that, iconic theme song and the credits and stuff like that, it's almost 30 minutes. It's right at about that length of time. There is a scene that happens in the intro that it just starts right off, grabs you right away with a bang, metaphorical bang. Well, maybe in a literal one too. Anyway, the imagery in that, there's something that happens and then there's the consequences of that particular thing that happens, and the imagery that it's showing was pretty, not startling, but I don't know, for me it was just very hard hitting, just the thought of what was going on or what had happened. And so that was something that I definitely wrote down. Also, another comment that I wanted to make is that practical effects rule, you guys. This film, if there were any visual or let's say a CGI effects in here, you don't know it, because from what I understand, in these movies, the general rule is it's practical effects. There's no lazy ass CGI stuff going on. They actually take the time and effort to make these sets, have these great action pieces and stunt choreography with real people doing the stunts, and Tom Cruise, of course, doing pretty much all of his stunts from what I can tell. So it just gives the movie so much more sense of depth and realism. Despite the crazy stuff that's going on and you're like, yeah, no way. It just feels more authentic and you can really just get into it. And it just is such an experience. It's so much better. It's so superior to a lot of the movies we're getting these days, especially a lot of the comic book type superhero movies that we're getting, which is so CGI and green screen and blue screen heavy. It's just ridiculous. And films like this, they stand the test of time. And the more these movies go on, the more Tom Cruise is with us, the more he just proves this reality. So there's that. I wanted to get that out of the way. Also, the synopsis of the movie feels very relevant to things today. If you don't know by now, it deals with AI and the very serious ramifications and threat that a rogue AI could present to humanity as a whole, and the forces that want to get their hands on that sort of thing so that they can control what people think, what people see, what people know, that sort of thing. Just feels so relevant, does it not? Something else that I liked, the cinematography was great, as pretty much has always been the case in this franchise. Some of the framing, there was like a certain, like I just like the way some shots were framed. There's a scene where there's a character and this person's sitting down and you see the reflection on a glass desk, and the person that they're talking to is tossing down all these passports one by one by one. And the way the passports are being tossed down is framing the person's reflection in the glass desk. I just thought that was an interesting touch. Little things like that really stand out to me, and that particular shot did. I wrote it down. I put some of the shots framing, and with Chibi. And that was what I was referring to, that particular moment in the film. I like that. And something also that occurred to me as the story went on was that we've been with Ethan Hunt through 7 movies now. And with the exception of a bit of time at the beginning of movie number 3, we've never seen him living his domestic life. We don't know what his life is like when he's not on these missions, and we don't really know anything about his backstory. In this movie, we get a little tiny taste of stuff from his past, from before he was with the IMF. And I'm just wondering if they're going to delve more into that with the subsequent movies, like let's say part 2 or whatever movies come after. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's part of the appeal of his character, is not knowing a whole lot about him or his personal life, except for, the storyline of his wife. So there's that I wanted to mention. And then something else. The stunts in here were amazing. That very well seen scene that we all are going to associate with this film, of him going off the cliff on the motorcycle with the parachute and everything. Great setup for that. Very well done. The chase scenes, well, okay, I think there's really only one vehicle chase scene in here. And I have to say, I think that one scene was probably my favorite part in the whole movie. And part of that was because, well, it went on for a while and it was very well choreographed. I mean, it was just so well done. I loved it. And a lot of times chase scenes in movies, they can be like, oh, ho hum, this is boring. There's a few movies where a good chase scene stands out. Like I like the chase scene in the first Born movie, Born Identity. That was a good chase scene. The chase scene in here with him and Haley Atwell, and they're in different cars and there's different people coming after them. It is so good. On top of that, it is hilarious in some parts. I kid you not. There were moments where people were laughing out loud multiple times. I was so tickled at a particular scene that it was showing. And one particular scene, and I just kept laughing and laughing. And then there were some other moments to this whole entire part of the movie. It was just so crazy, so well done. You'll know it when you get to it. Also, the fight choreography was, in general, extremely well done. Oh yeah, I forgot there was something I was going to mention. There is a specific fight scene in here that to me really stood out above some of the others, and it wasn't a fight scene that lasted very long, but the way that it was shot and where it took place, it's this very narrow alleyway, and there were 3 people involved, and the way that thing was choreographed was very well done, in my opinion. That really stood out to me as an excellently shot scene. You'll know it when you see it. Okay, back to the video. There was, I think, only one moment, and now I'm going to veer into the cons, really only one moment that I noticed that high swing type of thing so that the person can duck. You know what I'm talking about? I've mentioned that multiple times before. I noticed that once, and I wrote, high swing fight choreography has been good up until then, or like up until now. And this particular thing happened at the very end when there's like this fight between Ethan and Isai Morales. That is his name, right? Isai. Anyway, the bad guy in here. I forgot the character's name. Anyway, there's that. That's a minor con, really. But I do have some more things that kind of aggravated me. One was that I felt like there was more suspension of disbelief required than I appreciated. I did not like it that there were multiple instances where, oh, something happened just at the right time in the right place. Oh, he comes in and saves the day at the exact right moment. And the manner in which he did it was like, okay, yeah, right, I don't think so. And, I know that in a lot of these movies, there are moments where it's like, okay, but still the way they'd set up the scenario, it's like, okay, I could buy this. But there were too many times in here where I just couldn't buy it. I couldn't. And that was a detriment, in my opinion, to this film. Now, it certainly didn't cross into John Wick 4 territory where I got absolutely pissed off about it, but it was enough that I noticed. And Arturo noticed it as well. I think it was a review that I heard where someone also mentioned something along those lines. Maybe it was Elliot from IMO Reviews. It wasn't enough to cause him to notch it down to any degree. He gave it a 10 out of 10. I can't give this a 10 out of 10. Probably like an 8, 7.5 to 8 or so. Maybe closer to an 8 because I rated it 4 out of 5. But I'm hoping that the second movie, and I know that action films feel like they have to go bigger and better, but please, try to keep it rooted in a little bit more sense of realism, or that you can actually buy a certain thing happening. There were also moments where someone wasn't shot when there were plenty of shots fired at them, that sort of thing. After a while you notice, and it starts to like add up. It tallies up in your mind, and it starts to, well, for me anyway, it starts to aggravate me. And that was certainly an issue in here for me. And also, like, I'm getting a little bit weary of seeing people fighting and running on top of a train when you know full well that this is not something that can happen very easily in real life, and yet you got people being able to keep their balance on a fast-moving train with the wind whipping around, and they only fall because they're fighting with each other or whatever. It's just like, come on. This has happened so many times. This has happened before in this franchise as well, specifically in the first movie. But I wish they would stop using that whole scenario of people fighting on top of trains. I wish they would show it in a little bit more of a realistic manner. Yeah, that's just me. Maybe I'm asking too much. Another thing, and this now is kind of delving into specific characters and also an issue of not understanding the way a particular character was acting. There was, and I'll just touch on that one. That particular character right there, there's a scene where she is acting nervous about something, and I did not get what it was that she was so nervous about. So I was wondering if there was something that was missing, or I missed something. Maybe there was a scene cut. I don't know, but I don't feel like we got a good enough explanation as to why she was so uptight and wound up and nervous and kind of, trying to calm herself. I didn't get it. Someone fill me in if I missed it, because at first I thought I knew why, but then I was wrong because something else happened. I was like, no, okay, that's not it. And I'm going to avoid spoilers, so I won't say any more besides that. So that was kind of frustrating. Another thing, Haley Atwell's character was an absolutely annoying turd in here. I disliked her for most of the film, and it has nothing to do with the way she played her part. She was fine. She was funny in the car chase scene. I did kind of like her there, but the majority of the time, she does nothing. She serves no purpose other than to cause trouble. She's throwing hitches in plans that are happening, constantly leaving him in a terrible situation and splitting. And there were no redeeming qualities to her character at all. And I did not understand why in the world his character was so taken with her and just immediately drawn to, obviously, okay, the face, I get it, but I don't think that was necessarily what it was. It was just like his devotion and dedication to her made no sense given the fact of how new she was and the trouble she kept causing. And so she pissed me off. And as I mentioned in my out of the theater reaction, I did get to a point where there's a certain thing that's going on, and I was like, oh, I hope she gets killed here, because I'm tired of her character. I'm so sick and tired of her character. It's not until later on that she gets a little bit more tolerable, but boy, she didn't get started off on a good foot with me, this particular this character. So that was frustrating. Another thing that didn't make any sense. This woman is a thief and a pickpocket. That's minor spoilery, but I don't know. Maybe they showed this in one of the trailers. Whatever. It's not a huge spoiler about her. You find this out very early on when you meet her. And Ethan has had enough experience with her by now to know that she can't be trusted. And there's a part where he turns his back on her. Why? Why are you having his character do that? He's supposed to be smart. Why is he doing something dumb like turn his back on a character like her? So that was aggravating. These are the little things that started to kind of notch up in my brain and aggravated me. This girl right here, she was a cool character. She was one of the baddies. Arturo compared her to the Terminator because she absolutely would not stop. Her character was believable-ish, except there's one too many times that she takes on people about twice her size, and it's like, okay. And then another thing that bothered me about some of the writing, all the backstabbing and the double crossing, that gets annoying after a while, and it gets almost predictable. So like you feel, well, you can't trust anybody half the time, except for Ethan and his, close crew. But then also there's something else that as things are happening and the situation comes up where, okay, like only one person knows this particular thing. How is this possible? How is this possible that only one person knows this particular thing? This is not, I can't buy into that. And then also, if someone knows something super important and it's super sensitive and super, like way on up there, while I don't necessarily buy that only one person would know it, you would think other people in that particular person's same level would have some knowledge of this particular thing. But why would the thug know about something so super sensitive and so supposed to be so super secret? And I'm being vague when I refer to the thug in here because I don't want to let you know who this person is. But I find it a little hard to believe that this particular person would know certain details to be able to pass them on. So these were just things that are just like, this is not as tightly and well written as some of the other entries. Maybe if I would go back and rewatch all the other ones, I would find things like this to nitpick over, but this is the first time that it really jumped out and smacked me over the head as hard as it did. So that troubled me. And that's why I couldn't give this a rating as high as, let's say, Top Gun Maverick, a 4.5 to 5. I mean, I started at Top Gun Maverick last year. I gave it 4.5 initially. Then I bumped it up to 5 because that film was just near doggone perfect to me. I love it so much. I enjoy this a lot. I do like it. I will be adding it to my collection. I think action fans and fans of Mission Impossible movies will love this as well. I am not completely negating or just hating on this movie. I'm just sharing some of the things that bothered me to the point that it was something that stuck with me after the movie was done. I'm like, doggone, oh, these things just keep it from being perfect for me. So that was my experience. It's not enough to ruin the entire movie like what happened with John Wick 3 and especially 4, but it is certainly something that makes me worry about the quality of the writing in the second part. We'll see. But I don't think I have anything else. I think I've mentioned every single thing that I wrote down. So I'm going to draw this to a close, and whenever you guys get a chance to check this out, let me know what you think about it. Did it meet your expectations, or were you a bit disappointed by some of the things that along the lines of what I mentioned, or whatever? Let me know. Okay, that's it, you guys. Adios.